following, though, the emergence of various conflicting stories surrounding the alleged attack of the Nakedi teenage brothers at the Maselspoort resort in the Free State this week, CCTV footage has emerged which shows more details leading up to the attack. Well, does this new footage offer a new perspective on the situation, and what legal options are now open to the Nakedi family? Legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala joins us for more on this. Mpumelelo, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us on the Weekend Report this morning. You know, it's about 2.5 minutes of CCTV footage that has now emerged detailing pretty much everything that happened during that traumatic event for the Nakedi teenage boys. But I think the most important question at this point is whether or not that footage is even admissible.
Well, it is. It would depend on where it was recorded. Was it stored in a place in which it could not have been tampered with? When was it accessed? And whether it has been handled in a manner in which, according to evidence, would be seen as being probable. Now, from what we've seen, it seems as if to depict the same thing which was depicted by the cell phone footage that you have had, and it has started this whole occasion. So the chances of it being probable or the chances of it being true are quite high. So it's going to be up to the court to then say, based on other viva voce evidence which is going to come from the witnesses who are going to testify, does it speak to each other? Does it connect? Is there any connection that can be made? And if there is, then the particular footage should be considered. But I think the people who are going to be mostly interested in the footage now is going to be the police and also the NPA in terms of saying what other charges can we add. Can we move the assault charges to assault GPH? Can we add more criminal and general charges? Can we move on to more legislated contraventions like the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act? Do we need to go to the Equality Court on this particular matter? Are there any utterances that took place, especially when they were talking to each other, what was being said? Are there any words of discrimination which was being stated or any acts of harassment which were there? Those are all the things which are going to come in, and they have the potential of increasing the number of charges that the accused could be facing and other also civil damages at a later stage.
I mean, so what you're mentioning here is a potential change to the charge sheet as it currently stands. What we know so far, Mpumelelo, is that one of the three accused, Kobus Claassen, has in fact been charged with attempted murder, assault, as you've mentioned, and criminal injuria. I mean, what would the state have to prove in a case of attempted murder? Because we know that the footage, at least what we can see from the footage, is that there was a moment where Kobus seemingly had one of the Nakedi boys underwater, was holding him underwater. What would the state need to prove in such a circumstance in the case of an attempted murder charge?
The most important one is intention. Now, intention can be separated into three parts. There's direct intention, and there's also intention in which one would then say, you ought to have known that if you continue with this particular act, this is what is going to happen. Now, the act of submerging someone in water, what do you hope to achieve by it? Certainly you know what's going to happen. You are depriving them of air. So at the end of the day, it is not because there are any self-defense mechanism that you're trying to employ. It is clear that what you wanted to do was to eliminate him at that particular moment in time. So I think the charges of attempted murder could stick at the end of the day. And the footage which we've seen, that has certainly emerged, is going to go a long way in proving beyond reasonable doubt that the real intention of the accused was to make sure that whoever that was submerging in water was not supposed to survive.
I also want to talk about some of the sort of aggravating circumstances around this issue. We know that what was so horrific for a lot of South Africans was, of course, the racial discriminating tones, the undertones of all of this. This was perceived by many as a racist attack. Would that be an aggravating element when it comes down to looking at the merits of this case?
Yes, it serves two parts. Firstly, it shows motive in terms of saying your real motive here was not to simply assault any other person that was there, but to assault someone who was black. So it's clear that there are racial undertones that are there, and certainly adds a second dynamic in terms of any legislation which may have been contravened. As stated earlier, the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act would perfectly fit into this case in terms of saying what we're engaging in terms of this harassment while the exchange or verbal exchange which was taking place was to purely display your attitude when it comes to racial grounds, your attitude towards black individuals. So at the end of the day, you chose to act on it. Now, the final nail in the coffin was when you submerged that particular black individual or black kid in water. So it's very clear that what you are doing is not only a criminal element, but it's a criminal element which has racial undertones. And your intention was to say, I'm going to attack this individual because based on their race, because of the color of their skin. And there are certainly other things that could be certainly emerge at a later stage, and which would add on to the charges which are going to be there. And also to add on the issues of the work of the Equality Court, because the Equality Court was specifically built or created to deal with these kind of situations, and to say in instances where criminal charges are not going to be enough, let's make it easier for even civil proceedings to then come in. Let's make it easier for even compensation to then kick in, so that individuals can also kick in. But most importantly, when it comes to how the correctional measures should be then taken place, you can even order the person who has been found guilty to engage or to go and attend certain classes where they could be taught better as to how to deal with individuals, understand better how we are supposed to live, understand the notion of the Rainbow Nation, the importance of adherence to the provisions of the Constitution. So not only to punish them through criminal means, but to say, I'm going to punish you where it hurts the most, which is financially. But when doing that, I want you to know and understand why am I doing it. And I'm going to try and speak to your moral compass and change it so that you have a better understanding of what we should do as South Africans.
Another element that I think was shocking for South Africans who have seen the footage was the sort of cross-generational element of it. We had three of the accusers, we know, their ages range between 32 and 47, seemingly participating in this racist attack against, young teenage boys. Does the fact that these are older individuals expected by society to act better, to know better, does that in any way sort of aggravate the case itself as well?
It will certainly aggravate the sentencing part of it, because just remember that when you look at the sentencing, you look at the crime, you look at how the community values, you look at the type of harm that has been suffered by the victim. So at the end of the day, the court is going to say, as an older citizen, as an adult, we expect you to know better. We expect you to teach your individuals, especially when it comes to your kids, as to how they should behave themselves. So if you are going to teach them to be racist, if you are going to teach them to discriminate based on gender, then certainly you are teaching them something which is wrong, and we must not limit that to promote it, but we must be able to punish it in all other means and angles which are there. But now it also comes into another angle. There's a bill that has been in the background for a very long time, and I don't know why the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development is not taking this matter seriously, which is called the Hate Crimes and Hate Speech Bill, which was firstly discussed in 2018. Now, we're going to 2023 later tonight, and the question is, what are we doing about this bill? Could have made the prosecution of this particular act and these particular individuals much easier. It was not created because it was a nice to have, but it was created because there is this type of instances and events which were taking place. Now, if you are going to ignore your duty as the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development and not take up these matters, you are forever going to find these flare-ups taking place. You are forever going to find matters such as these ones going on around the country. And yet, you are sitting on a very important legal instrument, which could help to make sure that we are able to prosecute these criminals much easier. And we're able to ensure that we're able to bring justice at the end of the day.
Well, Mpumelelo, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing your insights on our program this morning. That was legal analyst Mpumelelo Zikalala. Up next, we